Do we have any comments from the public today? Oh, you there? Just wondering. Okay, very good. Do we need to act on any adjustments this month? Okay. Okay, thanks. Check. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda section, items 4 through 7. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll motion.
Okay, second. Any discussion needed on any of the agenda items? None heard. Okay, motion accepted and moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, good. Okay, regular agenda. We have the SJRA Woodlands Division reports. Who has the honor tonight?
Chris is interrupted. Chris is did. Yeah, so it's going to be, so.
You want to?
I have nothing to report. If you have any questions on the report that are in your packet, I can definitely go through this. Everything's pretty much running normal. No violations. Everything's working as it should, but I was trying to reserve time because I know Aaron has a presentation that can take, 15 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll answer any questions you have. If
Any
not,
questions for Chris? Hey,
thank you.
and that, you go back to your meal.
All right, let's start. You pass out some. Well, got a copy of the presentation you're about to see, and also a copy of the tenure project plan we're about to talk about. Let me get those up first. You got one? Okay. You have a presentation?
Last week?
No, no, sir.
Okay, we're good.
You got the presentation?
Yep,
Well,
yep.
okay. Don't need the bug. You've got a bug on site. Yeah, thank you. Oh, we're about to blind you. I don't know what Shelley or Maureen, you wanna bring the presentation? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you want to scoot back over here?
I'm good.
Give them a screen.
Here, Devin. All right. First, lead off, my name is Aaron Schindewolf. I'm a project manager and engineer with the San Jacinto River Authority, called our Technical Services Department. So I report to Connie and Dan Hildebrand. And what we're going to do is give you a presentation of our updated 10-year project plan. I've heard of project plan. Some people hear about capital improvement plans. This is that same sort of thing where it's projects to rehab and renew infrastructure, not just individual parts and pieces, but large projects. And we've had this 10-year project plan for probably at least 10 years now. A lot of what you'll see has been already in project plans in the past year or so. We'll have one new project to talk about, but this is a high-level overview of projects, particularly ones that are ongoing and continuing to FY25 or ones that'll start in FY25. Also talk about a little overview of the SJRA Woodlands Division, what level of service that has been expected of us, and we understand we'll continue on with the Woodlands, and that's part of how we develop projects, how the projects are developed, and then those high-level overview of those projects, and then finally an overview of the budgets for the projects that we're talking about and the full 10-year project plan. And the full 10-year project plan is in front of you, that big binder. Within that binder, you'll get sheets for each project and over a 10-year period, descriptions, photos, budgets, schedules, all that's included in those project plans. So first of all, a brief overview of the Woodlands Division system. We have in our system, we're a wholesale water wastewater provider. And in that system, we have over 8,000 assets. And what I'm talking about is pumps, motors, wells, buildings, tanks, water lines, sewer lines, manholes, all that type of stuff, not little parts and pieces, but these are the large components. So with all that taken into account, we have a replacement value of approximately $2 billion in our system. So service level expected, In the past, this is what we understood to be expected. In the future, this is what we understood to be expected. But basically, out of sight, out of mind. You turn the water faucet on, the clean water comes out, and when you flush a toilet or you take a shower or bath, you let the water out, it goes away. You don't have to worry about it. With limited or no service disruptions, and when they do occur, they're very short. So how are our projects developed? Well, first of all, we have a comprehensive asset management strategy, which started with the development of an asset management plan. From that asset management plan criteria, we developed asset management software and the criteria in there that tracks the assets, their expected remaining useful life, the replacement value, how likely are they to fail at any certain time and period, based upon a variety of factors. And also, what's the consequence if any of those assets were to fail? You know, if a water line would fail and it's served in a water burner versus a hospital, that's a big difference in the consequence of that failing. And then in that enterprise asset management system, that software, we also incorporate corrective maintenance that occurs, and that helps us to track the assets, the life of the asset, and when we start needing to renew and replace those assets and develop the projects from there. Also, upcoming regulatory changes, if we find out about them, can affect the project plan and may require the need for new projects to address those. Also, over the past several years, we have done a variety of master plans, and you can see 5 of them here. These 5 probably account for about 95% of the projects in the project plan. But you can see from left to right, you know, addressing the new water reclamation facility and conveyance system, water wells, water system assets, including the AC water lines, gravity sewer line projects, and also projects that are going to occur at wastewater plant 2, since it will be continuing in service for the foreseeable future. However, the key big projects of the 10-year project plan as a whole are the water line evaluation and renewal projects, new elevated storage tank, new water reclamation facility, and the optimization of place the system to the new reclamation facility. And I'll be talking about those here in a second. So first of all, the AC water line condition-based assessment. This is a project requested and has been funded using those excess funds that were approved to be used for a variety of projects last week. But this assessment will look at all the AC water lines and the Woodlands system as a whole, and you can see them all on the map there. And utilizing record information, break history, but then also going into the field and doing sampling on the water lines. So having to take water lines on service, taking samples to analyze in labs. Also non-destructive testing using different methods, and then looking at socioeconomic impacts. If the water line breaks, puts people out of water, what is that impact in dollars? So out of that, you will prioritize the water line replacement projects, come up with a new schedule to implement them and cost. And we're hoping to be done with the study, anticipated by July 2025. Wastewater conveyance optimization, let's talk about that one too. This project is to replace and divert flow from all these 5 lift stations just north of the new water reclamation facility into one common trunk line. And by doing so, by taking these lift stations out of service and their associated force mains, you get rid of that ongoing O&M cost, but you also save in the next 35 years, based upon a study we did, about $30 million of renewal costs that will have to be done to those lift stations within that time period to keep them functioning properly. Because they are between 40 and 45 years old, they will have a higher level of degradation. And then also, by doing so, getting these lift stations out of these neighborhoods, you reduce potential noise and odor, in addition to the cost savings. Elevated storage tank number 6. In addition, I will mention that the last project and this project were already in the project plan, so they're previously approved. This one's in preliminary design phase. Our system is under variance from TCQ because we lack sufficient elevated storage capacity. So this project is being done to address that. Also, by adding another elevated storage tank, it helps flexibility in the system, particularly when you have high demands and fire flows, when you have a fire nearby. It also allows us to take other elevated storage tanks out of service and not have that risk of having pressure issues if you have a large fire or something of that effect.
Question if I could. You said you're under variance right now from TCEQ.
Yes, sir.
How did that occur? Is that due to growth? Is that the number or the gallonage of elevated storage determined by the number of taps and service you have and something? Just curious.
Well,
I are, and it can.
Eric or I can, there's a requirement for all municipalities that reach connections of 2,500 that they must put in a elevated storage tank per the design rules of the state.
Okay.
If you, there might be a scenario where you're going to be at 2,600. You know, you're expected not really that far past it. You could ask for a variance. And I've asked for and granted or been received variances passed. In this case, you have we have 5 elevated storage tanks.
Right.
So over time, for pressure stabilization, storage, and some of the other reasons, those were put in. This one, I think, was in the long-term planning for the overall system from the water system model from years ago.
Okay.
So it wasn't put in. So I don't know why the variance was.
That's my question. Why the variance?
The state requires 100 gallons of elevated storage per connection. And when you look at all the connections and then our total elevated storage, we're short. And so they granted a variance to give us time to get one installed by 2027. And so we're working towards that.
And then when did we kind of exceed the
It's been
regulation?
a while because this tank has been on the books for 20 years. And it wasn't done because of cost.
So that makes sense. We haven't grown that much since in the last 15 years. So I was just kind of curious as to why now, but you're telling me remember, it's still in the growing phase.
You do an alternative capacity evaluation to apply to TCQ for that variance. They give it to you for like a 5 to 7 year window with an understanding that you'll be planned and be meeting it by the time your variance is up. So the variance is up in 2027. So the expectation from TCQ is that we're not going to turn around and apply again. So,
Or ask for an extension.
right.
All right, thanks.
We already do have the sign, so we don't worry about that. South Shore Gravity main rehabilitation, this actually ties into the optimization project, but it's a rehabilitation of the sewer line you see on the map highlighted. You can see the condition of some of the sewer lines and take as an example, this picture from a CB inspection. So this project is already underway in final design phase. About 6,700 linear feet of 36 and 42 inch ductile line pipe. So that rehabilitation will help with our flows in our system. Wastewater facility number 2, nurtured filter improvements, and another project that's already been in the project plan. It's a final design phase to replace the filters and rehab them on 2 of the 3 basins. One of the basins has already been rehabbed, but by doing so, we increase the capacity of each of our basins basically by triple, and allows us to take basins down as needed for O&M reasons without worrying about exceeding our peak flow permit at the plant. But it does not change the permit capacity overall. Lift station number 1, gravity main bypass and decommissioning. So this project allows us to decommission lift station number 1, which is the oldest one in our system. Also, we had to replace the force main, or would have needed to, because of its condition. It's very deteriorated. But by doing this project, we're able to divert flow from around lift station 1 to another larger sewer line to the west, and able to decommission the old lift station, and also not have to worry about replacing that force main, particularly since that's under Woodlands Parkway. So overall cost to replace the force main would be roughly $2 million, but then you have future O&M costs, future costs to renew the lift station, about $900,000. Doing this diversion, which is about $1.5 million, that's all you have to do. And then, you can abandon the lift station, not have to worry about it.
So to turn that into a gravity line, you essentially when there's not much elevation change along that part of Woodlands Parkway, right? So you create the elevation change?
Well,
when you lay
because
it?
that 42-inch line on the west end is very deep. So from the lift station, which is much shallower depth upstream, and you're able to have that.
So when you think about it, the lift station was built in 75. The interceptor to the left was built in the 90s.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So as development occurred, a gravity sewer went in. Now we can take that lift station online.
gotcha, okay.
Yeah, we didn't have that. They didn't have that option when the lift station was built to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Water plant generators. So this project, which is also in final design phase, currently at 3 of our water plants in the Woodland system, we have backup power provided by auxiliary, what we call auxiliary engines, like the one you see at the top. Those are only tied to certain components like pumps and wells to operate them. But in a power outage, an operator has to come out there physically and start those engines up and engage them to be able to run that certain component of the system. They're roughly 30 to 40 plus years old, depending on which water plant they're at. So parts are getting very hard to come by. But by replacing them with generators at the facilities, not only are you having that automatic backup power that you don't have to send an operator out there to engage, has the flexibility of being able to operate whatever component you want it to operate in. And it's not just operating that one fixed thing. So you can do a series of pumps, series of wells, whatever you need to have it do during that power outage.
We'll back up the whole plant essentially, or just,
That's not back at the
Most of it.
entire plant, but what we need is a minimum to maintain pressure set during a power outage. Water well rehabilitation projects. So this is not a single project, but we have projects underway. This is more of a program laid out as from a master plan. And you can look in our tender project plan. There's about 10 projects in there. What this does is, since surface water is is a supplement to the groundwater system, and surface water can be disrupted, we have to maintain our groundwater system, our groundwater wells. So this allows us to do so and rehab them as needed, as based upon last rehab and priority of the well, the amount of production it can produce, I should say. So this is what that project does. In addition, we ran the consultant modeled the aquifers and determined which wells in the future, 20, 30 years out, would need to be lowered deeper into the aquifer to keep up with aquifer decline. So as the well rehab comes up, we will, if that trend shows for that well, we will lower that pump further down and knock out 2 things at once. Last project to highlight on this presentation is the new water reclamation facility. We've gone through phases 1 and 2, identified based on from the stakeholders agreement that we move forward with a new MBR facility. Phase 3 would be for starting preliminary and final engineering. We need approval to proceed with that. As you probably heard many times before, the current facility does not meet PCQ design criteria. However, we are able to start with the land acquisition process in the meantime. But here I want to hand it over to Connie, and she's going to give a little bit of some scenarios for this water reclamation facility.
Thanks, Aaron. So just as a reminder, I'm Connie Curtis with the San Jacinto River Authority. I'm the Director of Technical and Operational Services. So we're going to kind of detour a stitch off of the capital plan, the 10-year project plan that we're talking about here, because there's been a lot of conversation around this water reclamation facility. So just real quick on vocabulary. A water reclamation facility is essentially the same thing as a wastewater treatment plant or a wastewater treatment facility. It's just a change in what the industry is calling it now. So if you want to call it a wastewater treatment plant or a wastewater treatment facility, you feel free to. We're going to start to call it a water reclamation facility. So wanting to make sure that's clear for you all, just as you're starting to see that it's the same project. But with that, there's been a lot of conversation of how will the MUDs pay for this project and the amount of money that we need. So right now, after phase 2, it was $288 million. How will that be paid for? Is it going to be SRA self bonds? Is it going to be something that goes out for an election? So rollback taxes could potentially not be done until November 2025. So a lot of that is conversations being had within the MUDs, but there's a conversation and a question of what does that do to SRA and what does that do to our schedule? So as a reminder, where we started from a San Jacinto River Authority perspective, in April 2024, that's next month, we brought a supplemental agreement in January to the MUDs for consideration. really requesting $40 million to keep the design moving for this water reclamation facility. So that supplemental agreement was not for the whole 288 million, it's for a portion to keep the design and the process moving forward. And what that allows for us to do is to have a contractor mobilized by the end of 2026 and early 2027, and hopefully have the construction completed by the fall of 2030. What we're hearing right now, just so that we're, just being as transparent as we can, if you were to move that same design start to the end of December of 2025, waiting for that rollback election, obviously that pushes everything out. So that same contractor mobilization doesn't happen until the winter or the spring of 2028. And then the completion doesn't occur until the summer of 2032, or maybe even into the fall. So with that, what we wanted to highlight was what are the impacts if there is a delay? If we can't continue with our design, what happens? So I want to read this because I think the words are really important not to just skim over. Water reclamation facility number 1, impacts of postponement. Existing treatment facility number 1 will require extensive rehabilitation soon if the new water reclamation facility number 1 project is postponed. This work would include, but not be limited to, the following. So if construction is complete after 2030, so if we delay really at all, there are some projects that could potentially be needed. And that's the column on the left. If construction is complete after 2033, so let's say we delay until December of 2025 to start design, and then that construction really kind of completes at the end of 2032 into 2033, it would be a combination of the left column and the right column. So these are projects that are needed for maintenance. The facility has to continue to be run. And so it's something that we're assuming that the treatment facility, water reclamation facility would still be being constructed next door, but there are projects that we would have to be doing on the old plant to keep it running. And so I think, as one of the trustees said, these would be considered sunk costs. Essentially, if you needed to go repair the wall of aeration basin 3, it may only be repaired for a year or two before it's demolished and taken out of service. So it needs to be done, and it probably can't wait, but it's something that if we keep things moving right now, we can potentially prevent the need to do. This is obviously, these dates are our best guess. Some of this stuff could start to fail earlier, but this is where we sit today. One request I want to just go ahead and note from the audit committee as well as the trustees was to put some costs to these lists to try to help just give some rough order of magnitude. So we're reaching out to a consultant to help us with that. And it will be something that hopefully we can bring back in April to the trustees to get authorization to do. Many of these projects are things that we don't have the in-house capability to be able to, with any level of certainty, give a price of a rough order of magnitude. And just to be honest, I don't want to put a number out there that's significantly wrong. So
I'd also like to see a percent of risk involved with these, likelihood that something could go wrong.
okay, like a likelihood of failure.
Yeah.
We can see what we have on some stuff on that and see what we can pull together. That hasn't been a request up to this point, but we'll look into it.
It'd be good to take a calculated guess, not obviously in addition to cost.
That's a question.
Yes, sir.
Why would you replace the blowers in aeration basins 1 and 2 when they're not even running?
Well, it's replace aeration
Chris,
basins
with
1
your-
and 2 and blowers.
Yeah, so it's the replacement of the basins themselves and the blowers that go along with
Plus
them.
the blowers.
Yeah, plus the blowers. So aerations basin 1 and 2 are decommissioned right now.
No, that's, you're running that way now. So why would you commission them prior to building a new plant?
We can't go longer than this time frame without doing something with those basins.
Why is that?
Currently not meeting permit. The permit requires us to have all 4 basins in service, and currently we do not.
Well, I know that, but you're not in violation. You're not within their guidelines. Right.
Currently, we do not have the capacity to treat the 7.8 million gallons a day for the permit.
Correct.
And so TCQ could note that as a violation and fine us.
I know, but you're not now. Then they haven't. Those have been out of work for a while. They've been not operational for quite some time now.
I would say that our risk is higher on that because of that. Right now, TCQ is being kind to us, but we are not in compliance today.
The other part is we do have the capability to put both basins back in service with those floating aerators. If you were out there Monday towards the back of the plant on the northwest side, you saw those big circles. We left those there because that's what we put back into the basins to get them back in service. So we can still consider them operational for TCQ requirements where we can. They just don't actually treat enough air. They don't put enough air into the basins itself.
So this is putting them back into the original design.
We would have to do a redesign of the aeration basins. That's actually one of the more complicated projects.
Yeah,
because
I'm
the basins are not the correct
stumped by
size
that.
anymore. That's part of the problem. So they need to be bigger. We actually don't have the space on the site to actually
Right.
put those. So that's a very complicated project. And one of the reasons that, I mean, we need some help costing and running the implications of what would need to occur. So I think you picked possibly the most complicated project up there, Hugh.
Yeah.
But it's a great example of why this is a difficult conversation, because if one of the other aeration basins fails, and let's say aeration basin 3, we need a wall repair, we got to take that out of service. We don't have basins 1 and 2 to run to keep us in compliance. So there's a lot of things that are interconnected out there that can begin to cause issues. So, but that was
But for a backup, you could do one of them,
essentially put the
two
aeration
instead of one.
bubbles in that don't meet the criteria
Yeah,
either.
right,
So, I
right.
mean, there's just a lot of not exactly.
Yeah, I'm just trying to explore
Right.
alternatives, right?
Right.
To what is a long laundry list of things that could happen, maybe should, and some maybe want to happen. I'm just trying to,
What they've talked about is an interim measure, not a long-term measure.
Right.
well, you wouldn't rebuild 1 and 2 and then go build a new plant.
We would not.
That would not make any sense.
That's why we've held off doing anything.
Yeah, right,
Too
Right, right.
Because that was on the 10-year project plan 2 or 3 years
Okay.
ago before we started
Yeah.
the strategic plan. We had identified to improve those. So there have been a lot of projects, so just to point that out as well, that have been pulled off of the 10-year project plan. That was something that
That
some
was
folks were
one-
pointing out, why aren't these projects on the 10-year project plan? Because we intend to replace the treatment facility.
Yeah.
And so that was the direction we were given from the stakeholders. So we pulled the project that otherwise would be in there because we didn't want to be double dipping on the costs on the project. So to some degree, this could be like almost a parallel separate project plan here if the years continue to push out, essentially.
And then, sorry, the replacement 450 kW generator, isn't that the one that was just in Aaron's list?
Yes, sir. Those were
That was on the bottom, I thought.
water, drinking water plants were, this is at the wastewater plant.
I thought on the bottom of that page, it was wastewater. Sorry.
Okay, so I think can be confusing is a water plant, a water reclamation facility, a wastewater plant. Those are different.
Oh, sure enough, water plant.
A water plant 2 and 3 down here, right?
Okay, so, okay, thanks.
Okay, so that's my detour. So we're gonna send you back to the 10-year project plan, and Aaron's gonna get to take it back from me.
Wrap it up. So those projects we went over high level, this is summary for the funding of those projects. So our funded projects are what you see at the top. They're roughly $6 million in FY 25, and continuing those projects to finish up at roughly, $1 3/4 million. Also, we have remaining 2017 bonds we've had in place, and we're able to utilize that to fund 3 projects. See, for a rough order of magnitude, about $21 million. However, those main projects, of the project plan that we've talked about, do not have funding right now. So these will be new bonds, and you can see between the water and wastewater system, it's just a little under $600 million worth of projects. All in, all done, over the 10-year period for R&R funded projects, looking at a little over $87 million worth of projects. Again, those 2017 bonds can cover those 3 projects for a total of $21 million. And then, like the last slide showed, the non-funded projects, the big projects that will need new bonds to fund, a little under $600 million for a total of a little over $700 million over that 10-year period. With that, thank you for your time, and
I've got a question.
do you have any more questions?
Can you go back 3 slides to fiscal year 25 projects? Yeah. What is the 5th WRF #1 owner advisors? Is that an engineering firm?
Yeah, so we have an owner's advisor that we have brought on board to help us with the water reclamation facility. So that's required in order to do an alternative delivery method. But it also is somebody who really knows membrane well. And so we wanted to make sure that we had an extension of staff essentially to help us as we get into design to make sure that we're making the most cost effective and also the best design decisions. So that is somebody that by law to do construction manager at risk, so a CMAR alternative delivery method, instead of just designing it, then bidding it, then having a contractor come in, we're going to have a contractor join us early on to help us value engineer and control costs as we go. But to do that, the state requires that you have an owner's advisor if you don't have somebody on staff who is knowledgeable of CMAR. So that's what that particular design is for.
I have a question on the engineering. So you have preliminary and final. You're kind of putting that in front of us together, saying that's what we need the first round of funding for, right? Can you break those apart a little bit for me? What you would kind of pull together and say, this is preliminary, and then when and what is the cost of final? And kind of the timing between those two.
There is not a lot of timing between the two. So the preliminary, right now where we sit after the end of phase two would be considered, if you were to ask Freeze and Nichols, it would be considered around 10%. Okay, that was right. 10% design. So it's very early in the design phase. So for 30%, we need to continue to make selections of, you know, the different types of vendors and then what type of power is necessary, how big is it going to be? What's the size requirements of different things like that, and continue to refine. At that 30% level is really when I would say preliminary engineering is done. And typically you will document that in a report that is something that is required by TCEQ. And so that is a 30% preliminary engineering report. At that point is actually with CMAR when you go out and you go find the contractor that then partners with you. So you work with them to work on pricing, and then move forward with the final design from there, kind of having a contractor working with you. They're not in control of anything. You are still in control of your design, but they're helping you to make sure that you're putting things together in a manner that is constructible, but also is generally the best value. And so from there, that's where you push to the end. And then the bidding is already confirmed with that contractor and the contractor moves forward with construction. There's a potential as well with the CMAR process that you can have early work packages. So for instance, we've got the property adjacent to us that we're going to be working to acquire. There's structures there that need to be removed. So they could give us pricing for that. And we could, in an early work package, instead of waiting a year and a half, we can go ahead and authorize some things early on. That's not in the $40 million right now. That could be something that we come back and we ask for some authorization for at some point between now and the end of 2026.
Have you already started to acquire land next to wastewater treatment?
We have just started, yes, sir. Authorized and under contract to do
We
so.
have a kickoff meeting
We have a kickoff meeting tomorrow or Thursday.
with the consultants that are going to be helping us.
We have some of those property owners who've already reached out to us months ago, wanting to know when we were getting moved.
A year ago.
So, yeah.
So now you're just going to negotiate their
Yes.
prices, and you use the consultant to come up with the prices that you can offer?
We have to do appraisals. We have to do meets and bounds surveys of the properties. We have to coordinate with these property owners and make certain they understand their bill of rights as a landowner. And then most of them will probably be a negotiated sale. Some may want a friendly eminent domain process for tax purposes.
You have a time frame?
It's about a year and a half for the properties.
You said it was authorized. Who authorized was it the
Trustee,
trustees? Okay, yeah.
And then our board.
about a year ago, when they authorized moving forward with the property acquisition and also the gravity sewer optimization.
And that was when they authorized us for phase two as well. We waited to initiate because we wanted more information on phase two that gave us the better site plan to make sure that we knew what property we felt like we needed.
Back to my engineering question, sorry. Who would be doing the preliminary and final
We have
engineering?
not selected them yet. So
Okay.
that will be part of what that owner's advisor, which is Carollo Engineers. So they have been selected. The owner's advisor is under contract. We've kicked off with them. They will help us to put the RFQs together by law, because there's certain laws associated with making sure the design engineers as well as the contractors, when we bring them on board, that we manage that CMAR appropriately. But all the RFQs, the requests for qualifications, they're going to help us put all that together.
And when would you expect to finish preliminary engineering, like right now, in your,
I would say that we would start preliminary engineering probably in the June-ish timeframe, and then end by the end of the year. Yeah. Say it again.
I said if we're fortunate.
If we're fortunate, yeah. By the end of the year, assuming that we move forward on schedule.
and you kick off final right after that?
Yes, sir.
I guess I'm trying to think, is there a?
It's not a big gap.
Is there a way to start preliminary, not hold up your whole project timeline, without trying to solve the $40 million question right now? That's all I'm trying to, that's why I'm asking these questions, I guess.
I mean,
Is
theoretically.
it possible?
I mean, theoretically, I think you possibly could. I think we're trying to get the contractor on board. I mean, Hugh, I will go look at it. Dan would probably be able to rattle this off faster than me. I think we're trying to get that contractor on board towards the end of the year to keep that piece moving. And so that preliminary engineering piece would be working alongside them too. So we can't get that contractor on board until we know that we have the funding for it. So that $40 million includes preliminary and final design, owner's advisor beyond this year. Right now, the owner's advisor is only funded through the end of this year, through the end of 2024. And then it would be also the cost for the contractor to help us with the preliminary, like I guess the design phase. And then it would get us essentially to the point where we would start construction. And the cost.
You're trying to ask, but may not know how to ask it. Do we save any money by having two bond sales versus one? The answer is no. Because
Yeah,
you have two issuance costs.
no, I get that.
These two gentlemen would get paid twice instead of once. And
No, I understand that. I'm trying to,
Scale it.
yeah, there's a wall that's in front of us potentially. I'm trying to make the wall a little lower, right? And digest more pieces than, that's all. That's all.
Now, the only,
I understand it's not optimal, but.
yes, we would have the money sitting in reserves. It would,
Exactly.
it would earn some interest during that short period of time. But we have to worry about money being spent within a 3-year period so that we don't end up.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
On the last
Thank you.
slide, I didn't get a chance to mention, but if you have any further questions, Brett's in there and he'll.
So sorry, I have one more question. Sorry. So 700 million is your kind of total against a $2 billion set of assets you said to replace. So this project plan essentially replaces 35% of everything, of the whole structure. How does that feel to you?
Actually, I think the 2 billion is low.
It's the best that we have quantified right now. I mean, it's the best that we have quantified.
Yeah,
in
but
our
it's, I
system
mean,
to be able to
it's
say 2
the
million.
numbers I'm looking at. So
Chance, the numbers we
I mean,
have, it feels low to us. Like it feels like that. It feels
700 or the two?
the 2 billion.
Okay, good, because the
But
700.
it's information we have. So if somebody wanted to go and dig around in our asset manager, that is the best number that we have. But
Yeah.
honestly, it feels
Yeah.
low.
Yeah.
Because we are not in the same way that I don't have good numbers to defend on that list. The numbers in the asset management plan, some of them are from 5 or 6 years ago with the best number we had at that point, and we don't update those every year.
I wouldn't think so.
Right, so
Yeah.
I think the 2 billion is low, so when you're comparing that 35% is not
Yeah,
not
just,
correct.
trying to ballpark.
Right.
It's a talking point, kind of,
Right.
almost, but.
And I would say, just the first slide with the 2 billion is just to try to give, like, this is
Order of magnitude.
it's an order
Yeah.
of magnitude. It's a large,
Oh.
it's a large system. There are bigger ones out there for
Yeah,
sure.
sure.
But if you'd like for us to remove that and quit saying 2 billion just because.
No. I was just trying to test it,
Well, if you
and you're answering that question in my mind.
Take the sewer plant, call it 288 or 290. It's roughly 15% of that 2 billion.
Yeah.
And then the other sewer plant is probably another 15%. The one up in Harper's Landing is quite a bit smaller. And then you start looking at what the water plants cost and then the 38 water wells cost and then all the
Yeah.
pipeline.
Yeah, I think it's low as well. I mean, I don't think you could rebuild it for that.
Well, and if it hasn't been updated in the last 2 or 3 years.
It's way low.
With what prices have done. It's
Right,
gonna
double
be
it.
way low.
Okay.
It used to be a water well was 1.5 million, and now they're 4 or 5 or 6.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
just the well.
Yeah,
itself.
yeah. Okay, thanks. Sorry. Last question.
That's fine.
Thank you so much.
Take one and pass it on.
Okay, sorry. Quit talking and grab the
That's
next one.
okay.
Throw enough forward.
Yeah.
This on our Google Drive by chance? You know, I always ask.
Oh,
It's not now.
it's not.
So I gotta write, I gotta bring, that's why I bring a pen every time, because you know. Killing me, man. I don't ask for a lot. Okay, thank you. So we're moving on to the next item of the agenda, which is the potential funding alternatives related to the projects we just heard about. Item number 10. So Eric, I think this is yours.
Yes, so in response to a lot of questions I was getting from directors about, well, there's these big numbers, what does that mean to the average taxpayer? What does that mean? You know, and whether we go water rates or taxes or whatever, what does it mean? What does it translate to? So from that, working with Brian and Adam, Maureen, helped, we all put this summary together. There's 2 documents that you have in front of you. One is this one that is a summary of options. The other one is a unfoldable, with a bunch of numbers on it. So we'll talk about both here in a minute. What I'm not gonna read the whole thing to you. The intention today is just to start the conversation, introduce these concepts to everyone. You'll have, obviously there's no decision to be made tonight. We'll digest it. I'd love to get input, over the next month or so. So the 4 options that we essentially identified, option number 1 would be to put it in the water and sewer rates. So that's kind of what you've done over the last few years. SDRA would sell a bond issue and then identify a wholesale water and sewer rate that would be enough to cover the debt on that bond. And then that would be passed through to the customer through your retail water bill that we send out. Doing some rough numbers, some of the.
I'm sorry, this is what, I know, I hate to interrupt you, but this is for the funding of the whole 10-year project plan? The 700? Okay. Right?
6 up.
The unfunded, right, it was 591, 592.
Call it 600.
Okay, that's what wanted to get in my head.
Of that 7, some of it's already been funded.
Yeah. Okay, so it's about 600-ish. Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
So several, the districts would have probably some slightly different amounts, but generally speaking, you'd be by the end of it in 2035, you'd see monthly water and sewer bills somewhere in the 250 or so range.
Wow.
Give or take. So that's what it would take.
That's increasing the average household of 8,000 gallons ish a month.
10 on water, 6 on sewer.
Okay.
Is the gallonage. Right now, the average typical water bill is $104. So that 104 will go to about 250.
Okay.
On a monthly basis.
Increase to 250. Okay.
250, right.
Right, gotcha. Okay.
In addition, it's not added to where you're at.
Okay.
That's right. So and you can read through, there's some pros and cons to that. I think by your reaction, that's kind of the typical, really. Yeah. So next option is a rollback tax election. And that's where you would go back to your voters and ask them for authorization to adjust your M&O tax rate to a different rate that would be enough to cover the same amount. So same scenario, SDRA would sell the bonds. I believe there's about 8 bond elections that are identified, at least there probably will be more, but we've had bond sales.
You keep saying bottle like sugar.
I know what you're saying. That's okay.
Bond issues, bond sales. So the one that unfolds in front of you, if you find that one, that gives you an indication of what and you're on page 2. So we put a red box around kind of the high point. So this is different. This is in addition to, not like what we just talked about a minute ago in the 250. So that 17.64 cents is in addition to your tax base today, or your tax rate today. So these projects would result in a $963, basically $964 increase annual.
Right.
862.47.
Sorry, I switched over. Excuse me.
Okay, yes, I was.
It's even better for you, 862.
And that is an average increased tax bill per year, all the way out to 35.
No,
You can see how it
the
rolls.
life of the bond.
Oh,
Changes.
got it,
right.
got it.
So the 8 bond apps start, I think, in 25 and one each year to the end, and then they're all on 30-year AMs. So it's a lot of them. That's why it goes up in the middle, because they're all overlapping at one point.
Yeah, gotcha.
And so that's what, roughly about $70 a month on the tax side. Something like that is what that boils down to.
The numbers on the top, Eric, right above our name. So you talk about the 2.9 billion, sorry.
Taxable value in the district.
Now,
Correct. As of January 1, 23.
Where's the legend over there?
Yeah, I'm,
So-
okay. I should just read the legend. Is that what you're saying?
And so, yeah, right below that, your SFDUEs, this is based on the 6th and final accounting,
Mhm.
so water and sewer. And so, you could slice it different ways, but the option we chose to move forward with currently is summing up those two and then determining that based on all of the SFDUEs as a pro rata share. And so that's where you come up as 15.74%. And so that 15.74% is applied to the proposed debt service. And then what I did was back into what tax rate would be necessary to cover that debt service. That makes sense.
will you say that again?
Sure. So your 15.74% of the total SFDUEs,
Yep.
water and wastewater combined, because they're different numbers. And so if you look in the bolded debt service, that's principal and interest on those 8 bond issues. And so if you took 15.74% of those numbers, that would be your pro rata share, the district's pro rata share of the obligation. And so what I did from that standpoint, based on your taxable value, determined what tax rate would be necessary to cover that cost. And so that's what you have here on the left side of your box. It's the tax rate that you would need to levy based on your 2.9 billion of certified value in order to cover that cost. And then on the right side, I said, based on your current average homestead of 368,213, what does that mean to the resident? And so an increase of 23.43 cents means an additional roughly $863 to the tax bill. Additionally, to what the current rate is, and the current rate I put in the box up top, second from the bottom, 2023 tax rate, you're currently at 17.5991.
So in that analysis, you are not escalating the certified value. You're saying, I think you heard you said you just held it flat. I
I
mean,
don't have that luxury. But
No, that's fine.
It would obviously
That's
help.
fine.
It would obviously help.
I mean, it's not gonna change the dollar side, but I mean, the effective tax rate is houses become more valuable in the future. Essentially, whatever happens in the future, 5 years from now, be different than this table, hopefully,
Absolutely.
unless we're losing value, right?
It's common in these reports to run them at a no growth.
No, I get
Knowing
that.
There will be. but-
Yeah.
Well, but also this option is to hold a rollback election because you're limited to 3.5.
Yes.
So what this essentially does, if you hold a rollback election to do 20.43 plus your current 0.17599, that would be your new baseline for your rollback rate. So in future years, you would still be subject to 3.5%. So it doesn't matter if appraisals went up 10%, we would still be subject to 3.5%, and we'd have to lower our tax rate. But that would be your new baseline. So you would reset it through the election one time, and then you'd be capped at that 3.5%, or you'd have to come down, but you'd still be generating enough revenue to hit your number for the debt service. And the benefit here is from what is calculating is you see the benefit of the 20% residential homestead exemption, and compared to if you do it on a purely water sewer retail basis, which is, I think, 17. If it's $148 more per month, because Eric said the current average water bill is 104, new one would be 250, so 148 times 12 would be $1,776 a month for a average user. But because we have such a significant commercial presence, you would be able to reduce the load for homeowners and be able to essentially shift a portion of the obligation, or a larger portion of the obligation, to commercial properties, which is what has been part of the secret sauce of the Woodlands for a long time. We talk about sales tax revenue and hotel occupancy tax revenue to be able to benefit the residents of the Woodlands through these large commercial bases. This option, I think, helps to be able to take advantage of that for these projects.
Yeah, there's also protection built in for, that, we kind of call it a lifeline rate for an individual on fixed income that doesn't use much water. Giving them, higher water bills could be problematic. Whereas this option gives them some protections with over 65 exemptions and some of the other things on the tax side, deductible, et cetera.
If that resident's mud voted for it. If it didn't, then they're gonna get water rates.
Different, well, or we're on to option 2. There's 2 more we haven't covered yet, but theoretically, yeah, they'd have to figure something out.
Yeah, it's an interesting way where you're spreading the costs out, distributing the cost. One is just by water usage, and one is almost just by property value. I mean, which aren't necessarily going to stack up and rank the same way, right? Probably your bigger homes use more water, but not necessarily. And then there's the issue you just talked to, and I didn't even think about the commercial side, which is a bigger step up even again, right? Okay.
Well, and that's evident if you look at this, as you have time to digest it, take a further look at the rest of this, at the other districts, and you can kind of see the effect of that. Yeah, particularly across the more commercial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see that. Metro, yeah. Interesting.
But that's typical in MUD models where, usually you would want to have a good mix of commercial to help out the residents' tax bills or bills.
And there's no point having a 20% homestead exemption if you're not trying to accomplish that goal.
Yeah.
And that's the point. If you don't, the whole purpose of a residential homestead exemption is to reduce the burden on residents and shift that to the properties that don't qualify, which by and large are commercial. Second homeowners, rental homes, but that's a small piece of the pie versus commercial.
Yeah. If I could move on just real quick.
Yeah.
Let's do options. Option 3 essentially would be back on the water bill situation, but it would be a flat fee type of situation. And so we just picked 100 and 200 for residential and commercial respectively, but you can kind of see, and you can play around with that. If you do the math there and you had that, let's say for 10 years and you were creating 43 million a year across the MUDs, you can do the math, 430 million which doesn't quite get you to 591, but at least gives you an idea of what 100 and 200 would look like. Now, that would be a flat 100 on a residential bill. That would be an additional 100. So effectively doubling the water bill if you were to go around like that. Now, on the flip side, that creates money probably a little quicker, where you may be actually able to buy down some debt a little quicker, and not have to sell as many bonds. Perhaps that is a piece of that, but anyway, you can see that. And then the fourth option, candidly, we really didn't develop wholly because, quite frankly, it's a pretty difficult option to.
Just inefficient.
It's-
It's a lot more cost.
For instance, and we put 50 to 60 bond apps, but the reality is, you know, if we're looking at 8 bond apps for bond issues for SGRA times 10, you're looking at 80 bond issues across all the MUDs that have to go through the state process, so the TCQ process, and the issuance costs and soft costs for that are just not efficient and not realistic. Just way too many problems with that. But I will say that is the way that the Woodlands was originally developed through, you know, their own bond sales, but that's not a model that we think really works right now where the Woodlands is.
On that topic, I know it's more cost, but as a percent of the 500 and some odd $1 million, 592 million, what are we talking about? Are we going from 5% cost to 25% cost? Or are we going from 5 to 8%? If you looked at the kind of these administrative costs and kind of the funding costs.
Yeah, it's all.
The River Authority soft costs equate to about 5%, and you're looking at about 10% internal districts. And it's strictly because of the size of the issues. With tiered fees, the larger the issuance, the more efficient, obviously. And with respect to bond sales, the larger the issuance, the larger the bank that comes in, and the less spread they're willing to take because it's a larger issuance.
Yeah.
Interest rates potentially would be better on that.
Yeah. So what did you use for interest rates currently? Just curious, what kind of
Currently,
coupon
the
are you pushing?
Current rate is probably about 4.25.
4.25.
What I used for the first issuance, I gave myself a little bit of leeway, so 4.4. And then I added 25 basis points over the next 4. So a total of 100 additional basis points, and then I kept it flat beyond that.
Average is about 5.25-ish.
And you're doing the 8 over the first, 5 years?
And I can,
I know you guys did. I'm just trying to remember.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Is it?
Started in 25 and went to 32, I think.
if you'd like to see the backup, I'm happy to share.
Yeah, I'm just kind of trying to get it straight in my mind. So can I ask a dumb question?
Okay.
So back to Metro Mud. I'm just trying to compare that to ours and this huge difference in the annual amount. Their certified value, does that say 3.2 billion? And we're 2.9? Where's the gearing on that? What am I missing?
The difference is the effective rate. So if you look at the average homestead, I don't think
There's only one.
one at 1.28
There's only one
billion.
homestead in Metro. So all the rest of it's not gonna qualify. So this is just the tax bill for that home. The rest of it's gonna be full freight. No homestead.
That's really what's driving this?
Yeah, and if you
Is the
look,
homestead
so if you
piece?
look at the average homestead for your district,
Yeah.
you're 368,000 at 23 cents versus 1.28 million
Yeah,
at 23.
That's what's really driving it. That's the
Yeah, your
4X.
Tax rate impact is about the same because your value is about the same.
Yeah.
It's strictly the homestead and value.
Okay.
Yeah, we were trying to get it to a granular
Yeah, no, that's good.
individual.
Good analysis.
Lot to soak in, lot to digest. I would encourage you to think deeply more about it. Think, if you have any questions that come up, let me know. There's different pros or cons that you can think of, let me know. We want to continue to evolve this and share and educate everybody. Ultimately, whatever direction that the MUDs go, we're going to have to educate the public significantly on this. And that's enough. There's a lot to cover. So whatever you think would resonate, as you think, brainstorm things, we'd love to know that as well as we develop the campaign at some point from that time.
You know, I really like getting just if I could, I really like getting the residents in on this process, to be honest with you. I think that's important, just like you're putting a new school in, or, you know, bond elections all the time. And I think that's very transparent, and our communication plan that we're setting up right now with Holloway really leads to that educational program you just talked about as well, right?
And I
To
did
get help with this.
absolutely. And I didn't should have mentioned that in option two, if we were to go option two with the rollback option, you can only host those in November. And so our thought would be is that this November would be a little quick.
Yeah.
Because of that reason, we think that the public education piece of this is going to be pretty significant. And so we're thinking that more than likely it would be November of 25. And to your point earlier about what's at the table right now is the ask from SGRA on the first tranche of this, which would really by default, without a rollback option, would roll into option one at a mark of what, 40 million, whatever the first tranche would be to get the engineering rolling. That wouldn't cover any construction. So that would chew a little bit off of this. We didn't run the specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if it's $146 for
Full 592,
600,
yeah.
right. You can
Do the math, kind of, yeah.
portion that. Be a lot smaller, $10, $15 probably on the bills.
Yeah.
Just to make sure I'm understanding this. On the rollback tax election, we're talking at its peak, $70 of tax per month to the resident, roughly 71 and change. An increase in that tax. If we're looking at option one, we're talking $150 per month of added costs to household.
Average.
Right.
So in the summer, that number will not be that. Now in the winter will be less, but in the summer it will be even higher, obviously,
I mean,
for usage, basically.
it sure seems like the rollback tax election could be something we look really hard at.
Now, do all the MUDs have to agree on one form, or can each MUD decide what they want to do?
Each MUD can decide.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
oh, even better. Okay.
And
Ideally, though.
Guess Metro's got a plan of their own, right?
Ideally, it would be best if they were consistent. We would like to, Jim worked hard. I'd like to continue to keep water and sewer rates level. And right now you equal across the MUDs. You have two MUDs right now that have higher water and sewer rates than the others. This could potentially, if those MUDs chose, you could play around with a penny or two here on that number and pull them down, or a certain district could say, give me another penny and let's all drop the water and sewer rates down. You could do that if you wanted, and lowered your monthly bill to the customers even lower on the water and sewer bill side and put it more in this. You can play with that. But for instance, if one doesn't, then that district would theoretically, their water and sewer bills would go way up. Whereas, yours would be on the tax side. So that would throw all the MUDs off kilter.
Yeah.
If one of our goals is to try to create some consistency across the woodlands. So ideally, it's, all for one, but it's not, that's not the way it will at least be presented on a voting basis. Each mud will vote it.
It would be a really complex to have it going in different directions. Some in, some out, right? I mean, I just am trying to imagine having to parse it out that way every month for every bill. Maureen's like, no, Maureen should get a vote, I think, right? And her team.
Not ideal.
Team too. Yeah. Okay. I appreciate the analysis. Been really looking forward to this. Thank you.
Team effort.
Yeah, much appreciated. More questions to come. Any other questions for the? Okay. All right. Well done. All right, that was item, let's see, we're going to 11, Bear Branch.
We've received the draft report from Lithwider LJA on the modeling for Bear Branch, Bear and Panther Branch system. We've asked them for a cost estimate based on the two models they've run. So they are in the process of preparing that. We should hope to be June at the latest, that we're coming back to the MUDs that are involved in the project, give them an update and tell them kind of what the concept is and what the benefits are to the project. And then hopefully you all saw on the Bear Branch Dam, the press release, and we've gotten our contract from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and their kickoff meeting this week to get that project moving.
Yeah, good.
That's all I got.
For Ed on that. Okay, thanks, Ed. All right, item 12. Welcome back. Good to see you again. Attorney's report.
Well,
I'm sure you did.
don't have anything under item 12. I do need to cover 13 and 14. You'll have to jump.
I don't think we do, so we can go there.
Okay.
Yeah.
13, drought contingency plan, water conservation plan. Staff is still working with the consultant and the river authority on those. We will roll this to next month. It does need to be approved next month to be followed by the statutory deadline of May 1st. So
Okay.
we'll continue to have that on the agenda. We do have that on the agenda for approval. You've got the backup in the packet. The district remains a developed district, similar to what we were before. The 3.5% rollback rate we've been talking about under item number 10. We do need to adopt the resolution confirming that we're a developed district for 2024.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt the resolution concerning developed district status for
I'll move that
2024?
motion to adopt.
All right, do we have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, adopted.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. General Manager's report.
We just have a couple updates for you. Myself and a couple directors attended the Gulf Coast Water Conservation Symposium. Diane and I went with a couple others, and it was a good event.
That's good.
Good information, I think. Yesterday I attended the George's Coffee Club and presented with Aubrey and Ed a presentation on, in general, Woodlands Water Agency, what we do, our responsibilities, SJR's responsibilities, the MUD's responsibilities. And then towards the end, talk a little bit about the infrastructure that's coming, and briefly touched on some of the funding. Some of these didn't go into as much detail, but talked a little bit about that. So seemed to be well received. Had some good questions from there, so that was good. Probably we'll have a lot more of those types of things in the coming months and year. Did have, as Ed mentioned, we did have a press conference with Congressman Crenshaw to kick off the Bear Branch reservoir or dam project. So that went pretty well. Let's see. Wanted to celebrate an award that we've been notified that we have won. It's the AWWA Water Environment Association of Texas, which is WEET. So AWWA and WEET are the two agent organizations have selected us as the winners of the Watermark Award for Communications Excellence. So it's something that we applied for, and we won on the basis of the 2023 Strategic Communication Plan that we implemented last year and went through. So congratulations to John, the PEC, and all the team. We're really excited to be honored for that. So with that, John?
May I interrupt? I've got a question for you.
Yes.
MUD 1 met this morning, correct? And there was a conversation, it was a little hard to hear, about a consultant that's a current MUD director, that a MUD director could serve in a consultant capacity, specifically Jim Stinson.
Okay.
What was that about?
That was about One Water. So years ago, there was a One Water task force. I think it was born out of some flooding events. And the township last year voted to with the idea to kick One Water back off.
Okay.
It's kind of died off over the years. And so it was a group that was, I think, originally created to identify solutions to the flooding that was occurring at that time. I think there's mixed, from what I understand, there's kind of mixed feelings about its success, but essentially several drainage analysis were born out of that. The Spring Creek drainage analysis that's being done right now, the Bear Panther Reservoir analysis that's being done right now that you heard about this already earlier. Those were essentially born out of that, or were a part of that. And so when the township identified that they would like to, re-up that organization and see if we kind of said, well, it's important, I think, that before we would jump into that again, we need to identify what the true goals of that group would be. There's some that say we need to jump right into flooding. Others say, well, we don't really have a flooding issue specifically across the whole Woodlands. We might have some hot spots. Creekside obviously had, some issues, but so some we've kind of talked about as some of the goals would be overall water supply for the county. That's obviously an issue that's been at debate for a long time with all the lawsuits and all that, the Lone Star, et cetera. So that flooding subsidence. And what the goals of that group might be. And so that's why we identified the goals. We agreed on those goals conceptually. And I think in the conversations, they kind of evolved to say, unless there's someone or someone's, not one entity, because you could bring in, flood. One of those people has the overriding authority to really do anything, and in order they have the time and a bit of free time to go after it. And so the idea was to maybe look at getting an individual or identifying an individual that could put some time into it, versus me or someone else trying to do it in our spare time and then the thing failing, whatever those goals ended up being. So that was what that discussion was about, One Water. And so I drafted a letter to the township saying, yep, sure, we're in, here's our goals, and more to come.
So the township is the one that's spearheading it?
Well, I think last year at least initiated the idea to re-up it, whatever that looked like, but said, we're not going to take the lead necessarily, but we're willing to open it back up if anyone else is. And so they kind of reached out and said, are y'all interested? And there were enough, different various directors that were involved in the previous one that said, if done right, there's a lot of issues in the county that we need to work together on outside, not just the Woodlands, but, outside the county that we could work on. So
I think there were some off the cuff remarks about, brainstorming about who some potential consultants would be. And I think one director mentioned some other directors within the MUDs. And my comment was, well, I've got some concern about that. I need to go back and look at the statute, which I've done. It's 49052 about disqualification of directors. And you can't be a consultant and a director of your district. So that's the statute I was thinking of. So it couldn't be a paid position. Now, if somebody wanted to volunteer, great, but you couldn't be a paid consultant of the district and be a director in that role.
Okay.
I think his name came up because of his experience.
Correct.
Sure.
Correct.
He
There
could
were a few
really
people
help
that
any
was brought up.
record.
Right,
if he
and he's
was
got the time.
I don't know that anyone has talked to him about it directly. I haven't. Some of the other guys may have, I don't know, but I don't know if he'd even be interested, but, and I think the statute would say that his district couldn't pay for it. But the others could, township could, others could, he could be the guy, but again, that's, that name was thrown out by a director on that MUD, and
I see.
that was a little premature, just because we're not to that point yet.
Yeah, okay, got it. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
All right,
No.
communications, page 51. Quick report for you this evening. I did want to give you some stats on the annual update. You were first out the gate with that, but then we followed that up last month. Yeah, leading the way as usual. But we did follow that up in sync with the other MUDs on sending that out via email and then social media as well. So
all the MUDs participated this year.
all but one.
Okay.
And great response. So about 70% of your accounts got the email, 70% roughly get your bill. So good that you're doing both. We did see a nice response to that. After the emails went out, we saw more than doubling of your webpage visitation. And that'll ramp down in time,
Right.
but a nice response to that for sure. So worthy effort. Water Smart, just some high level statistics there, but some really encouraging ones. So in 2023, we averaged 170 new registrations a month for Water Smart. That has doubled since the beginning of the year. And the primary driver being the fact that folks are now going there for their auto pay. So we expect the high rate of registration to continue as more and more folks move over to Water Smart for auto pay. So that's good.
Awesome.
Yeah. Next couple pages, just examples of current marketing materials that are out there, and then an outreach calendar on page 53. As always, we encourage you to come on out and join us at any events. You can come for 5 minutes to talk to folks, stay with us the whole time. I want to highlight the emergency preparedness event on April 13 as an excellent opportunity. That's always well attended. That's hosted by the township at Town Hall. Saturday morning, April 13th. We'll be out there. And finally, incumbent next to the incumbents that are running. And the other MUDs have since followed suit. You have that option if you so choose. If you would like to stuff your bill with this type of information, we're happy to put that in this coming bill. And
I next to a name.
It's just informational, just identifying that the person's an incumbent, but it's not advocating to vote for any particular candidate. That's the bottom line. You can't be out.
yeah, and this is very much,
Have a mock-up.
yeah, just a LeBron James is not running.
Yeah.
Right, we're working on it.
it just makes me nervous, like the Attorney General, he's gone after some schools for electioneering.
Yeah,
The whole thing.
that's what I
just
was
makes me
thinking.
nervous, You know,
like,
Bonds, part of it's in the eye of the beholder, but something plain vanilla as elections on this date, these are the candidates, these are the dates to vote. I mean, I think that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, there's been inquiries to include bios, questions and things.
I guess the
The only
only other,
information we're providing on the candidates, in addition to the name and if they're an incumbent or not, would be their financial disclosure form, which is on the website.
I mean, the other than putting those people's names in there, giving the election information is to have a link to Montgomery County, Texas Election Center. Right? Because the names, I think,
they're all there.
are all there.
Yeah.
And then you're just sending them to that website and
And
that site's not.
vote, location and whatever, but that, maybe if for more information and a scan here, and then it clicks you right to the county website,
Mhm.
and then everything there is the county.
Mhm.
And that's to me, that one step removed that doesn't really look like we're,
Pointing people.
yes.
Yeah, it might save you guys
Yeah,
some
some
future
heartache.
headaches.
Yeah. Yeah, I,
The sequence of the name, right? Who's first on that list, who's second, you draw, supposed to draw about lots and
Right.
figure out what the ballot's gonna look like.
Put in the name, they would be put in the order that they were drawn.
So the ballot order.
Ballpark, yeah.
It should be, yes.
Yeah.
The ballot order should match.
That's already been identified. So they would be in that.
And the non-contested ones that aren't up for election because
They wouldn't do a ballot.
would they be on that list or not?
It's by district, so
I understand. So in this case, would Diane and I be on that list?
no.
No.
It's just the candidates for that particular election.
And are the MUDs voting individually whether to insert this or not?
Yeah, it's up to your individual district's discretion.
Yeah, the idea came up and then we decided to just offer that since it was and the other month said, yeah, that's actually a good idea. Let's do it. So that's where we're at.
What's that election's in May. What's the date on the election?
before.
Saturday, May
Fourth.
fourth.
Early voting starts
April.
So that's why it would have to be decided
Couple
at
weeks
this
ahead.
meeting
Yeah.
if you wanted to do it, if you waited to the next meeting. Voting before we started.
We want to do team.
I would want to just connect to the county site, put a QR code that connects them to the county site and just let them know there is an election. To learn more and go right to the county site.
It doesn't smell quite right.
I got a bad feeling about it. That's why I don't mind saying that we got an election. I just would rather, if we got to do this, go to the county site.
Point it to a
County
demand.
site, yep.
I would agree with you. I'd vote for that.
There's three of us.
Yeah.
I don't dislike your idea either.
Yeah.
I think that's okay as well.
Yeah. Because there are some other good local races
Yeah,
that
there's-
they should know about too. So I'm just like, as long as you're on the site, let's go for this. So would that be like too hard for you guys to flip it up like that?
No, we can do that.
Okay,
Would it be, I don't know if it'd be worth putting it on that. We might try to put it on the bill. It's just a QR code. Maybe we can look at it.
We've got the other information on the left side.
Yeah.
We're just
Do you want
saying.
to keep that?
yeah, like here,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think this is good,
Like
like
the right
early
side.
voting and
Gotcha.
stuff.
Okay.
Love that.
Local issues, but then here, other local issues, click here and then say that it goes to mctx.org. Nice big QR code that gets them right into the county's website.
Easy
And
to scan, make it big,
yeah,
keep the names
So
up on
I'm
it.
sorry, want the names on there? or
No.
No.
No names?
Nope, just direct to the county site.
Substitute-
County out.
Yeah,
Substitute with the big honking QR code.
yeah. And if you want to send me a draft, then
Yeah,
I'll look
okay.
at it. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And that way you've got my address and we're working well together, so that'll work. Yeah. So good.
Probably shoot to see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Thanks, Diane. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
All right, good discussion, everyone. Thanks, John. Okay, we did that, we've done that. Well, moving along.
Yes,
I think we are the trustees report. Item 16. Eric, do you want to do that?
I can do that. So that's the trustees report. Big item was seeing the presentation that you saw today. Let's see, the trustees with the
49.
The trustees did vote 7-2 to utilize the excess funds for 5 projects that were identified, which you talked about last month at your meeting.
I dissented on that as we had discussed. It became an all or nothing type of decision. That's how the motion was put to the floor, and we were not an all. So I said no, in addition to one other, just so you all know.
That's disappointing.
It is, but
And then the other thing that was talked about a little bit was as part of the Public Education Committee and working with the PR firm, we were PR firm and SGRA and WWA are collaborated on identifying kind of some branding for what the campaign might look like, what it might be called, that type of thing. So we're working on a logo with them, and that's kind of in process. And I think that was it. The trustees.
Yeah, just John helped us like he just did, so that's good. All right, thanks, Eric. Any questions on that? Okay. Do we need to go to a closed session at all?
We do not.
Okay, thanks, Barry.
Right.
All right, then, any other public comments? I don't think so. That takes care of 18. Any, future topics to chat about? One that did come up in the Board of Trustee, actually was, to look at the director and officer insurance covering directors for the MUDs. Came up as a topic, from one of the other trustees. So it was asked to be put on the trustee agenda. I think it would be put on a MUD as well, right? I don't know, we have timing on that, but I know it was just asked. I don't know if you got that request.
No, I think
I can chat with you.
we visited about that before,
I think one of the directors was talking about somebody getting involved in one of the MUDs. He said, you know, why would I do that? The risk's too great or something. So that got him thinking that maybe we need to understand it and look at it, you know, again, kind of, and I totally agree with him. I think it makes a lot of sense. So that was one topic, but nothing else from y'all right at this, just 10 seconds. Okay. All right, then we can adjourn.
Yes.
Thank you.